It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I didn't wake up this morning feeling dangerous, nor have I for many, many months.
Sounds like a conversation with a therapist rather than a NFL fantasy football podcast. But you know, if you wish,
this is cheaper than therapy.
Well, it's free, so it's definitely cheaper than therapy.
But that said, that bitch from Charlie Brown claimed to be a therapist.
Bitch from Charlie Brown. Is that the one who stole the football every time he went to kick it?
Every live long time.
Poor Charlie. There's a lot of people who are far too young listening to this going, who the F is Charlie Brown? Is that dude on Apple Plus TV? And you're like, yeah, okay, why not?
They're the ones with the problem.
Yeah, probably. This week, Dutton, usual fare. We're going to plug into the mains. We're going to talk rookie quarterbacks and struggles. We're going to talk about the best player in the NFL, and also look at playoff teams in trouble. Last season, playoff teams in trouble. Then we'll go fancy darlings, fancy losers, and my favourite part of the show, me and you making complete prat of ourselves with our bold fancy predictions of the week.
Before we get there, I'd like to say that over the last 2 weeks, Marquise Brown has contributed to making me look stupid twice.
That's a special. I love the fact that you called him a fantasy loser, and he was great, and then last week he had no hands.
And made Lamar look ordinary. So once is a coincidence. Two,
I don't think he liked you. I don't think he liked you not calling him Hollywood. But you know, there you go.
Hey, we're a proper wide receiver number.
Add him to the list of everyone. I don't think proper wide receiver number exists now, Neil. On that note, let's plug into the mains. Much hype in draft season around rookie quarterbacks and how they were going to light up the league. After 3 weeks, they have not. Let's take them in order that I've written down, not in any particular order of anything. So far, they have one win between them, and that was Mac Jones, who beat Zach Wilson. So I'm not even 100% sure that counts. I want to start with why I want to talk about this. Is being a rookie quarterback's hard, but it's especially hard if your coach is terrible at his job, and that brings me to Justin Fields, who had a combined 68 yards passing and 67 yards in sacks, which means he had 1 yard in passing. He was an accurate intermediate passer in college and is an exceptional runner on the move. And his coach, quote unquote, decided that they should play him like he was Andy Dalton. My question is, should he be sued for gross malpractice and also be fired immediately?
We have to say that, taking aside all the things, all of the factors, if we just watch the game, Justin Fields did not play well.
No, he did not.
This was not a situation of a player succeeding in spite of his surroundings. This was a player who, what he was asked to do, did not look like he could do it. So we have to establish that. Coach's responsibility is to put players in the best position to make plays and be successful. Matt Nagy did not do that. As you said, this offense was Andy Dalton's offense. So it called for the quarterback to be where he was expected to be and get the ball out quickly. The big knock one of the knocks coming out of the draft for Justin Fields was that he was occasionally too methodical and too slow to eliminate what wasn't there. If you're asking him then to take 5-step drop and stay in the pocket and expect him to quickly work out what's going on behind that offensive line, you're setting him up for disaster. As I said on Twitter, I've never played in the NFL. I think that many people would like to see it. I've never coached in the NFL. I have taken a course on the theory and practice of pass protection by the fabulous, the QB school, our friend, JT O'Sullivan. And one of the things that we talked about was if you have a problem with the offensive line and as a quarterback, in terms of pass protection, there are several things you can do. And the easiest one is move the launch point. Because if the defensive front know where the quarterback is going to be, they're just going to meet at the quarterback every single time. Roll them out, move him out, get him on the run, make the most of the skills he has. Matt Nagy did not do that. So this leads me to obviously think that Matt Nagy is actually genuine in that he said at the start of the season when they signed Andy Dalton, this is Andy Dalton's team. So he made no effort to amend the offense for a different quarterback. You're a prat. This offense looked better with Mitchell Trubisky last year when Bill Lazor started calling the plays. If Nagy wants to save his job, he has to give Bill Lazor the play calling.
But this leads me to the question, right? He looked into keeping his job last year, in my opinion, as did Ryan Pace. They then looked into getting a potential franchise quarterback again, the second time the Chicago Bears have allowed them to do that. And then you decide you're not going to play him and not even create a scheme where he would be successful. The most important person in Chicago when it comes to the Bears right now is Justin Fields. Like, a million times more important than Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. So how can you be in a position where you're not giving him the best tools around him to succeed? It's incompetence at the highest level, because in the first person to get fired before the start of the season, he was in the top 5. And then after that performance, I'm like, we got, in theory, whether he succeeds or not, people thought Justin Fields was a top 10 player, and we got him. So we need to do everything we can to find out in 3 years, let's say, whether he's good or not. And we just wasted one of them.
The most important thing to say is that while Justin Fields has to be the most important person in that franchise, it is organisational negligence of the highest order to trot anyone out. Anyone you have more than a 1-year commitment to trot them out behind that offensive line. Jason Peters, you're a legend. You're in my opinion, probably a Hall of Famer. You're one of the best left tackles over the last 20 years. It's over. You against Myles Garrett at this stage of the game is a recipe for disaster for you and everyone you're supposed to be protecting.
I mean,
Garrett didn't even have to try to get past you.
He didn't. Let's move on. Mac Jones got some, I think decent reviews first couple of weeks. I think in the kind of management of a rookie quarterback, they kind of attempted to do stuff right. On Sunday, however, he was 4 of 21 on passes over 10 yards when he was trying to throw it over 10 yards. And he finished with 3.8 yards per attempt and was pressured 61% of the times throwing deep, when I was under the impression, and people told me, that this was a good New England Patriots offensive line. I was also under the impression that people thought that this New England Patriots was a good team, and I haven't really seen them do anything good. And if anyone is trying to suggest that beating the New York Jets is good, then they are kidding themselves.
Mac Jones, again, is another one that's suffering because of, as you say, preconceived notions that people had about the Patriots, that they were going to play bully ball. They were going to restrict Mac Jones to 25 pass attempts per game. They were going to run the ball down people's throat, and that their defense was a dominant unit. It's not. It's old. It's slow. The offensive line took a massive hit when Trent Brown isn't there. They lost James White, who, we are here at this stage of the season, of every season, that he was probably the best offensive skill player they have, other than Jacoby Myers, who is, of course, as we know at the moment, an NFL record holder, the most receptions in NFL history without a touchdown.
That's a good stat to have, isn't it?
It's a great stat to have. It's, as I say, Mac Jones might be very good. We saw him be excellent in college as, a facilitator of an NFL standard offense against everyone else. Can he come in and elevate the skill players around him? Well, hang on. No one wanted these skill players.
So just on that, Neil, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? According to Bill Belichick, if Mac Jones played for Tampa Bay right now, he'd win the Super Bowl because Tom Brady looked this shit for the New England Patriots the last time he played. They run exactly the same plays in Tampa Bay that they do with the Patriots. So, therefore, by definition, Mac Jones would win the Super Bowl, right? I fucking love Bill Belichick. That's one of the greatest bits of bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. If he is trying to tell me, and I'm no expert, that dumping 2 yards and being the 29th passer in depth of target is the same as number 1 in depth of target, he's fucking insane. He's literally lost it, and he may need to go into an old people's home. Like that, I know Bill never talks in a press conference, and now I know why, because he said that, and it's insane.
It's almost as if, hear me out, players matter.
No, I know. No, I know, but I agree with that. Players do matter. But that's what I'm trying to say. Like, Mac Jones would be good in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team because, they've got talent. Like, this is the elephant in the room. Like, Bill Belichick is the greatest NFL coach of all time. I do not want to hear ever again that he is a good GM. I do not want to hear it. He is not very good at player personnel, especially on offense. He is not good at it. He hasn't been good at it for about a decade. He's won multiple Super Bowls because he is an unbelievable coach. But I don't want to hear that he's good as a general manager because he is not. Do you know who I am enjoying watching this year of all of the rookie quarterbacks? It's Trevor Lawrence, because he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's like, I wonder if I can do this. I could do this at Clemson. Can't do that in the NFL. Trevor, they're better. And that's another interception. Actually, that's a good throw. Touchdown. If you watch him, it reminds me, like, not that he's going to be Peyton Manning, but like Peyton Manning threw, like, I think 29 interceptions, maybe 39 interceptions that first year. Because he was like, oh, well, in Tennessee, I could throw this pass. Yeah, but in Tennessee, you were playing Kentucky, and that lad wasn't the best player on the team. You can't do that. Yeah. 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a head coach who desperately doesn't want to be there. I think I'm okay with Lawrence.
It was, going back to Peyton Manning, I think it was after 4 or 5 games, I think, Marshall Faulk lost his patience with him because he kept saying, I thought he was open. I said, there's college open,
yeah, exactly.
And there's NFL open. You need to learn the difference. Yeah, I've never seen an interception thrown on a flea flicker. I've never seen a pass on a flea flicker thrown off the back foot while falling backwards. I have now. So, Trevor, thank you. I've fulfilled that ambition. Yeah, the Jaguars are a mess. We thought that we correctly assumed that the worst team the NFL played in the AFC South. We got the wrong team.
Yeah, we did. We also thought that worst team was the worst coach team. Also wrong, because this team's the worst coach team.
Yep, bad coaching, bad play. It's Bradley Walsh and Mike Bassett, isn't it? Bad players, bad team, bad manager. They've gone out of their way to ruin Trevor Lawrence before he ever took a snap by not making it about him when it's what they should have been pinning every hope they have on. He should be the saviour, but instead they, as I say, they signed a offensive strength and conditioning coach. They signed Tim Tebow. They said it was a quarterback competition between him and Gardner Minshew, and then traded Minshew away for the start of the season. They have. I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Lawrence was literally de-gaffing it. The whole just I'll just do what I'm going to do until you leave.
Yeah.
And then maybe a grown-up can come and we can actually begin my NFL career. He doesn't look. He makes some throws where it's like, that was impressive. But as I say, he makes others where it's the Kirk Cousins. What the did you just do?
Exactly.
And there's 2 of them a game at the moment, so it needs to stop.
I was listening to the Athletic Football Show, and they did a mailbag, and a New York Jets fan wrote in, and said, in 2 years, when we have the first pick, do you think that the Mannings will stop Archie Manning signing for the Jets because the Jets are so bad? That's right. We're 3 games in, and New York's already quit on Zach Wilson.
The problem with Zach Wilson
is he plays for the New York Jets.
Yeah. Is that the second he set foot on an NFL field, he was playing against the best defense he'd ever played against. Before he'd even taken a snap,
true.
before he'd even read a coverage, before he'd even recognised a blitz. It was so much better than anything he'd ever played against. I'm not convinced this iteration of the Shanahan, McVay, McFleur, whatever it is, LaFleur offense is ideally suited to him, because it doesn't seem to be giving him the layups that I see Shanahan give a quarterback who leads the league in hospital passes for the last 5 years, or that Aaron Rodgers gets in Green Bay. Obviously, they're different players, I know, but it just seems that we're just relying on Wilson. I'll just force it in there. You've got the arm to do it. He has. His arm strength is impressive. Arm strength and arm talent are not the same thing. But again, we have here a quarterback who was elevated above the level of his college competition to play at a team that is not at the moment built to protect him. The offensive line is still a work in progress. The ground game is non-existent. The defense is shite. They're asking him to play hero ball when he hasn't even completed this level at rookie. You know, they're asking him to play all-pro before he's even played a game at rookie level, if we're going to use the Madden analogy. We've seen quarterbacks get broken in New York before.
Yeah.
They could be reclaimed when they go somewhere else. More often than not, they don't. I'd hate to think after 3 games that we're already saying, yeah, this guy's done. But it's not looking good.
When we did the NFC West preview, we asked the question, when would Trey Lance start? And I said week 5. It was against the Cardinals. I didn't know the Cardinals were going to be good then. They're 1-2 and they're playing Seattle. Now, Seattle have been
2-1.
2-1 and playing Seattle. Could be 2-2. Their quarterback is not going to help them win right now. So I assume that means that Kyle doesn't trust Trey Lance to be the quarterback yet, because otherwise he would already be there.
I think it means that Kyle Shanahan thinks that the mistakes that Trey Lance would make, at the present moment, would be more costly and damaging than the mistakes Jimmy Garoppolo is currently making.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then Jesus Christ, this boy better not play at all. I've never ever seen a quarterback throw his receivers into so many dangerous situations where they're forced to make business decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
In week 3. Jimmy, Jesus, man, put it in their hands. Put it on the numbers. Not above their head. Not by their knees. Not behind them. They're going to get hurt. George Kittle got hurt last year on one of your hospital passes. Learn your damn lesson, boy.
I think they're struggling. And I think it concerns me after watching those first 3 games that Trey Lance hasn't been in more, because, as you said, that must mean that they think there'd be more bad plays from Lance that they're getting from Garoppolo, and that's concerning.
But, as we know, the less you play, the better you are.
Yeah, true.
In the eyes of other people, which is why the backup quarterback on a team with a struggling quarterback is usually the most popular man in the town. It's if you hadn't said anything, we'd have thought you were clever. we haven't seen you fail. You must be better than this fella. So Kyle probably doesn't want to throw him in just yet and remove all doubt, because I think it wants to be a situation where it has to be, no, I'm terribly sorry, Jimmy, we've seen enough. Whereas at the moment it could be, if I put in the kid and he struggles, I'm going to have to go back to Garoppolo, and then that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, true. Let's move on, Neil. Let's talk about the best player in the NFL. Who am I talking about, Neil?
Jalen Reagor?
No. This player has the biggest gap in his position between him and the second best player at his position. He has the greatest percentage of field goals, and he plays in the AFC North. Kicks against expectation, he's 18% above average. To put that into comparison, Patrick Mahomes, completions against expectation is 4%. So as Ben Zola quite rightly said, Justin Tucker is 4 times better than Patrick Mahomes. In all seriousness though, how cool was it that he kicked that field goal?
If he'd made the field goal there in the game, he wouldn't have to kick one from 66 yards.
I was waiting for that, yeah. He finally missed one in a dome, and you focus on that. Also, it should never have happened because, like, I don't know if the guys realise, but it's not like 3 seconds after it's hit 0 that it's delay of game. It's like when it hits 0, it's then delay of game.
Yeah, this isn't the I'll pick you up outside the pub at 12
Been there.
And you walk out at 10 past. That isn't it. It's no, clock gets 0, play is done, penalty.
Correct.
And 10-second run off, we're done. It's not the, just let him play. No. The Lions are the best bad team in the NFL.
I spoke to Taib Abu on the touchdown.co.uk touchdown review podcast, and he's a massive Lions fan. And we had to talk about Matt Stafford, which was painful for him, obviously. Well, it wasn't painful for him. And then his team works really hard, right? So he's in he knows his team's not very good and he may win 2 games, but he's comfortable in those 2 games because he thinks they're playing really hard for the coach and the coaches around that said coach, and that's a good thing, right? Now, they're not expecting to be very good, they're not expecting to win games, but it's not the worst position to be in. Like, Baltimore wins, Detroit loses, but in theory you probably feel better about Detroit and the position they're in, as in, they're a bottom dweller anyway, they worked really hard, they fought, blah de blah, compared to the Baltimore Ravens, who some people thought could challenge to win the AFC, and you can't even beat the Lions.
All I ask Detroit, it's a small favour, and it's not, I demand more than 3 targets with TJ Hawkinson, even though that is what I do. Take those grey kits and throw them in the sea. They are vile. They are horrible. They literally look like it was a white kit. There was an old grey black sock went in the wash with them, and that's what we get. There is no historical link to this kit. Never wear it again. Never.
He's had it. Right, final thing, Neil. Last season's playoff teams are in a bit of bother. Bears, Seahawks, the football team, the Steelers, the Colts, the Titans, and possibly even the Ravens. That is 7 teams who are, with the exception of Colts and Titans, who may fall in by accident in terms of winning their division, that is. Ravens might make it in as a wild card as it looks at the moment. But Bears, Seahawks, football team and Steelers, ungood through 3 weeks. And if we take the Bears, well, they're just not making, based on the AFC West and the Packers, they're just not making the playoffs. Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, it's going to be tough. Football team, shit. Dallas are good. Bollocks, didn't want to see that, but it's happening. Steelers, you're a bonfire, who just put gasoline on top of the bonfire and then threw rubbish on it and then set it on fire again.
Yeah, it's as you say, all these teams do seem to have fatal flaws that you struggle to see how they're going to fix. Like it's the Seahawks, your defense is trash. And again, there was some people who swallowed the Kool-Aid and thought that the hire of Shane Waldron and the pieces they brought in an offense, that this was going to be a year again that they were going to unleash Russell Wilson. No. Stop believing this crap. As long as Pete Carroll is there, they are never going to unleash him. What they do at halftime, I've no idea. Literally, second half of all three of their games, they have come out listless and they don't look like they've got a plan. I see, people like Rob Statton, who we've spoken to in the past, we know Rob, very level-headed. He's angry.
I'm going to say he ranted like that was not Rob. No. That was not standard Rob. Like.
He's angry with Ken Norton. He's angry with Pete Carroll. The Steelers, we know what the problem is. Their defense isn't living up to the bargain that their offense is expecting them to do more and more because they have a quarterback issue. He's not very good. He's not. We hate to bother people, but while the Steelers were going 11-0 last year, your quarterback wasn't very good, and he fell off the cliff. He full Peyton Manning'd off the cliff.
If you love comedy, Twitter, find Stephen Ruiz's video tweet of Big Ben playing like in 1920s music in black and white. Like it's just absolutely magnificent.
The Colts, it's just they're having the season from hell, and everything that can go wrong will go wrong. I've read this stat. They haven't won on opening day for 7 years, maybe 8 years. Well, yeah, that's a problem because you arse into it. You don't play anyone in pre-season. You don't have like full practices. Carson Wentz is a problem, but unfortunately you've hitched your wagon to him. This is the problem you've got. All the injuries, you can't use injuries as an excuse. I'm told time and time again. The Titans, good God, you're not getting there with scheme on defense. You're gonna have to actually invest in these places. Your defense is awful. I did look. They're allowing the fewest fantasy points to tight ends in the league. That's because you don't have to bother target the middle of the field. They've got nothing in the corners. And
this week, according to Rappaport, there's a chance Julio and AJ Brown don't play. That's 50 carries for Derrick Henry.
50 carries, 4 receptions for Derrick Henry, and all the yards.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Neil, that's it for Plugged Into the Mains. Let's get on with the fantasy stuff, and let's start with Fantasy Darling.
Hello, darling.
Last week, 1 and 2. Giving you 1 and 2. You went with Teddy Bridgewater. Only 11.8 fantasy points, which I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, was below Jameis Winston and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Tim Patrick, a win. 5 receptions, 98 yards, 14.8 fantasy points. Devonta Smith, no matter what, 5.8 points, 3 receptions for 28 yards.
You misread it. It was Devonta Smith, no matter. What?
Oh, okay, sorry. My mistake. Neil, who are the darlings this week? Let's have your first one, please.
First one this week. I always like to spread them out amongst positions, so I'll go again with quarterback, and I will go with Tyler Heineke of the football team. I'm not saying he's good. He's fun. He averaged 23.4 fantasy points over his last 2 games, so they're 2 games that he has started. He's not a rushing quarterback per se, but he does run. He's averaged 5 rushing attempts per game this season. I say that's only in like 2.5 games as well. In the last 5 games of the Atlanta Falcons, who I may be targeting them because I did go with Daniel Jones last week on my advice to Nat. The last 5 games going back to last season, the Atlanta Falcons are averaging or allowing on average 296.6 passing yards, 2.8 passing touchdowns, and 25.6 rushing yards to quarterbacks. I think again this is a game between 2 teams who defensively are struggling to find their identity, shall we say. So this could be another beautifully bad shootout. By the way, Jack Del Rio, all these pieces you've got on defense, how am I using them? Just a thought.
With the defensive line the team have got, and the fact they're playing Atlanta Falcons, with a statue and no offensive line, it's got to be a get-right game for the defence. It's got to be. If they get beat by Atlanta, we're in blow it up mode, like.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your second darling, Neil?
Second darling, we are getting already to the stage of the season where if you didn't take Travis Kelce, Darren Waller or TJ Hawkinson, basically you're looking for anyone who's got a jersey and a pulse to plug into your tight end spot. Well, such a person does exist. His name is Evan Ingram. Now, Ingram is not a particularly efficient receiver. We don't want efficiency at tight end. We just want them to catch the ball. He struggles with that as well. The Giants are now have lost potentially Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, all injured. Kenny Golladay, they paid him $18 million this year, and they are managing his snaps in the fourth week of the season. That's great.
I think just on that, I think he's in $26 million next year.
Sorry. Kadarius Toney, yeah, he looks good. John Ross has been activated off IR. Great.
Any idea why they booed? Any idea why they booed the owner when they were out because of this stuff you're telling me?
Just remember, if spreadsheets won games, Bill Gates would be killing the NFL at the moment, according to the hilarious comedy god that is their head coach.
I heard a horrific stat though, right? So before we do this, because we like burying the Giants. I was listening to a pod and they had the Giants beat writer, and he said this team has won a Super Bowl every decade for the past 4 decades, and then I was sick in my mouth. So please carry on. That was all I had to say.
But remember, analytics aren't important because Joe Judge said he will go for it when the situation calls for it. This is why he punts on 4th and 2 from the opposition 39 yards. But I digress. Evan Ingram is Daniel Jones' 3rd most targeted receiver over the last 3 years. The New Orleans Saints, who I believe they're playing, they're not particularly friendly to tight ends. Evan Ingram is not a traditional tight end. He's a wide receiver who plays in that position. And as I say, if all those other players are injured, he's going to get force-fed because that's what he does.
Yeah. So,
as I've said, all these players are out. As I tweeted before, 25 targets for Evan Ingram for 72 yards.
Lovely. But in PPR, that's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shite. Final one, Neil.
Final one is Old Mother Hubbard, or Tuba, as he prefers to be called. Christian McCaffrey is down for probably a few weeks. It's unfortunate, but hey, you paid him. We saw last year that 85% of Christian McCaffrey is still productive from a fantasy point of view in this offense. I have some figures to back this up. In the last 2 years, there have been 6 games without Christian McCaffrey. Sorry, 6 games with Christian McCaffrey and the rest without him. When Christian plays, they average 2.36 points per drive, 29 rush attempts per game, 1.8 rushing touchdowns per game, 106 rushing yards, and 70.8 plays per game. When Christian McCaffrey does not play, the rushing attempts go down to 25, the plays per game go down to 60, so 10 fewer plays, but they still average 106 rushing yards. This is an offense that is suited for bell cow running backs, and that is presumably what Tuba is going to be in relief of Christian McCaffrey. Now, they're playing the Cowboys. The Cowboys' defense has been one of the most surprising units of the season, but they're still not great against the run. That's why you only call 3 running plays against them, you see, because they're not good against the run. So
that's why you only do it 3 times.
That's why you only do it 3 times, and one of them in garbage time.
Is that why you stand still and you don't motion as well? Is that why you don't do that as well? Okay, that makes sense then. I'm with you. Okay, I'm making notes.
The Cowboys have given up the 12th most adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs so far this season. They're giving up 4.97 yards per carry and 57 receiving yards per game. That sounds like a game that you'd want Christian McCaffrey in. So 95% of Christian McCaffrey and Old Mother Hubbard. I think you can plug him in this week and be fairly happy with it. I should point out now that in terms of winning these moving forward, if it's a quarterback, he needs to finish in the top 12 for it to be considered a win.
Just so you know, Teddy Bridgewater was like 26, so it wasn't like it was close.
If it's a wide receiver, I want the top 20, 24, and if it's a tight end, I want the top 10.
Okay. What about running back, Tuba? Tuba's an RB, right?
Running back, he's got to be in the top 10.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to check.
In this situation, if it's going to be something else than that, I'll specify, but if I just say running back, I want it to be a top 10.
Okay, that's fine.
Because they don't matter, so why should they not matter?
Yes. Okay. on that bombshell, let's get on with Fancy Loser. Dived to 1 and 2. Picked Jameis Winston because you thought he was going to throw 57 interceptions against the New England Patriots. Instead, he threw a punt, and somehow Marquise Callaway came down with it. I've never seen a quarterback get shouted at by his coach for throwing a touchdown before, but he definitely did.
The look on Sean Payton's face when Jameis walked off, the only time I've seen a look similar to that is when I've woken up, having been into my cups the night before, and being told, "So do you remember what you did last night?" That was a similar look that Sean Payton gave Jameis Winston.
Correct. 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, no ints, so that's a loss, even though it was only 16.67 points. We expected ints, and we didn't get any. Neil, who is the loser this week?
Loser this week, I think it's going to be because of game script, because as we say, he's going to be throwing to the likes of me and yourself, is Ryan Tannehill. Usually in games where you have a situation like this where it's going to be positive game script, that's because the quarterback has got them in that position. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be similar to what happened with Teddy Bridgewater, in that the game is going to get out of hand for the opposition very early, and it's just going to be a heavy, heavy dose of Derrick Henry. We've seen in the past that Derrick Henry can have his days and Titans wide receivers can have theirs, but I don't know how many they're going to be playing. So I can't really think the Titans, in their infinite wisdom, are going to say, no, we won't keep running Derrick Henry. We're going to throw it to Anthony Ferguson or Nick Westbrook Inekli, how do you pronounce his surname. It's going to be a Derrick Henry day, all the live long day, and I don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to get enough work to make any fancy noise. So I don't think he's a loser in the sense that he's going to be terrible. I think he's going to be a loser in the sense that he's not going to do anything.
If he was terrible, it'd be tough because he's playing the Jets. So yeah, you probably don't need Ryan Tannehill, i.e. you use Derrick Henry, i.e. he's a loser because he doesn't get many fantasy points. Final thing, Neil, let's do my favourite part of the show, which is our bold fantasy predictions of the week. Last week I said Justin Fields would get 25 plus fantasy points versus the Browns. That's a no.
You didn't say what season though.
I'm now wondering if Justin Fields gets 25 fantasy points. That's it. That's all. That's just that. You said Lamar would get 250 yards, 150 on the ground and 4 touchdowns. He would have had at least 2 more touchdowns. I'm only saying 2 more because 2 of the drops were on the same drive. So if he would have caught 1, it would have gone in. So he would have had 2 touchdowns from Marquise Brown. Don't worry, he laughed it off on the private jet on the way back. I'm sure you were made up with that.
Arseholes.
This week, my fancy prediction is a Kyler Murray rushing game. They're playing the Rams. Mike the Martian's going to be running for his absolute life with Aaron Donald somewhere behind and chasing. But based on that, I think Kyler Murray gets 75 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against the LA Rams.
My fancy bowl prediction is actually from the same game, and it's something that has been low-key ignored because of how explosive they've been on offense, but the Cardinals' run defense is shite. So I'm going to say Sony Michel is a top 5 running back in fantasy this week. Nice,
Neil. Nice. Sony Michel sticking it to basically won the Patriots the Super Bowl. Did you know that? Nothing to do with Bill Belichick or Tom Brady.
No.
Neil, that's it for this week. Before we're back again, where can people catch you?
Follow me on Twitter at NDutton13. You can read my stuff over at Numberfire, at Rotoviz, and at 4for4 Football. And hopefully I will have some fancy advice. Probably expand on the players I've touched on here for my fantasy. Get them in your lineup this week. Going on the Nat Coombs show this Sunday.
Fantastic. If you like listening to me hosting podcasts, first of all, you're probably a psycho. Second of all, then listen to the Touchdown Review from thetouchdown.co.uk. Doing a weekly show, usually on a Tuesday, unless, stuff happens, like the mighty Reds are playing in Portugal. Therefore, it was Wednesday this week. Multiple guests on every week, talking NFL and college. This week, 4 guests from the NFL side of the show. Tayyib Abu, Joe Valenzuela, our man on the ground in Texas, although weirdly a Cleveland Browns fan, but hey ho, fantastic guest. Thomas Willoughby and the brilliant Colin Squires. Give it a listen. It's definitely worth it. Guys show some deep knowledge. It's not fancy. It's just straight NFL stuff. I am at Mainz7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. Until next week, enjoy the NFL, and we will see you again.